At my sister-in-law's wedding reception, my husband announced to the whole room, "You are not family to us. You came here to eat for free." Then he forbade the server from giving me any food. But suddenly, a distinguished man with white hair, whom I had never seen before, whispered, "Take my arm, and they will swallow their tongues when they see who you are with." Hello. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Enjoy the read. But to understand how this nightmare turned into a triumph, we need to go back 2 hours. The Sterling Grand Ballroom at the Grand Hyatt in Atlanta, Georgia, glittered so brightly that Lena's eyes started to ache the moment she stepped through the door. This was the most expensive venue in the city, a place where a single cocktail cost more than her parents' monthly Social Security check. Today, the Jacksons were celebrating. Her husband Terrell's family was marrying off Tiffany, his spoiled, demanding sister, who was used to getting whatever she pointed at since childhood. Lena smoothed the wrinkles of her dress. She had sewn it herself, working late at night after the numbers in the accounting ledgers finally stopped dancing before her eyes. The fabric was a modest beige, thick and high quality, but against the screaming sparkle of the other guests, she looked like a gray mouse who had accidentally wandered into a peacock ball. No one greeted her at the entrance. Terrell, her husband, had rushed over first thing this morning to oversee the setup, although Lena knew perfectly well he wasn't overseeing anything. He was just drinking expensive whiskey with the groom's friends. She found her name on the guest list. Table 28. Lena walked through the massive hall, navigating between ladies in silk gowns and men in overly tight tuxedos. Table 28 was in the furthest corner, right next to the swinging kitchen doors. Heat and the smell of sizzling onions wafted out, and servers rushing past with heavy trays kept bumping the back of her chair. She was seated alone, like a quarantined patient. At the head table, elevated like a throne above the ballroom, sat Tamara Jackson. Her mother-in-law looked monumental. She wore so much gold jewelry that it seemed her neck might snap. Next to her sat Terrell. His face was already flushed, his tie crooked, and his loud laugh echoed across the room. Not once, even through the music, did he glance toward the dark corner by the kitchen. An hour passed. Toasts were exchanged, guests shouted, "Kiss the bride," and clinked glasses, eating delicacies. Filet mignon, jumbo shrimp, miniature crab cakes. The tables were overflowing with food. But no server approached table 28. Lena sat with an empty plate. She hadn't eaten breakfast or lunch because she'd spent the entire day closing the books for a client just to make it to the reception on time. Hunger twisted her stomach into knots. A young server hurried past with a large platter of smoked salmon. Lena, overcoming her embarrassment, quietly called out to her. "Excuse me, miss, could I please have just a little fish? No one has come to my table for an hour." The server stopped, smiled apologetically, and reached for Lena's plate to place a slice of salmon on it. "Of course, I'm so sorry. It's a zoo in here." At that moment, a shadow loomed over the table. A heavy hand slammed down on the server's shoulder, making her flinch and drop her tongs. "Don't you dare!" a man's voice snarled. Lena looked up. Terrell stood over her. He was drunk, his eyes gleaming feverishly. Behind him stood two of his friends, smirking and waiting for the show. The music in the ballroom suddenly cut out. The DJ was switching tracks, and in the resulting silence, Terrell's voice sounded like a gunshot. He snatched Lena's plate and threw it crashing to the floor. The china shattered into tiny pieces. "Did you not understand your place?" he roared, spitting slightly. "What are you doing?" Lena shrank into her chair, her face burning. Hundreds of eyes turned in their direction. "Terrell, what are you doing?" she whispered, feeling a lump rise in her throat. "I just asked for something to eat." "To eat?" Terrell shrieked, playing to the crowd. He spread his arms, addressing the hall. "Look at her. She came here just to gorge herself." Tamara Jackson, at the main table, stopped chewing and watched the scene with a smug grin. The bride, Tiffany, covered her mouth with her hand and snickered. Terrell leaned down close to his wife's face. He reeked of expensive liquor and someone else's feminine perfume. "You are not family, Lena. Get that straight once and for all. You are a nobody. You came here to freeload off my mother's money." He straightened up and barked at the trembling server. "I forbid you to serve her any food. Let her sit there and watch decent people eat, or let her get out." A dead silence fell over the room. Someone coughed nervously. Others looked away, but no one intervened. Terrell's friends guffawed, as if he had just cracked a hilarious joke. Lena felt something snap inside her. The thin thread of patience that had held this 10-year marriage together finally broke. But she couldn't move. Her feet were glued to the floor. The humiliation was so thick she felt like she was drowning in it. Terrell, pleased with the effect he had created, turned to walk back to his throne. And then the air in the room shifted. From somewhere in the shadows, as if he had materialized from the darkness itself, a man stepped forward. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with completely white hair neatly combed back. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than the entire reception. None of the guests knew him. No one saw him enter. He moved not like a guest, but like a predator, surveying his territory. He walked through the crowd of gawkers, and people instinctively parted for him, sensing the wave of icy authority emanating from him. The man approached table 28. He didn't look at Terrell. He only looked at Lena. There was no pity in his eyes, only cold, calculated understanding. He held out his hand to her. The gesture was commanding and demanding. Lena, not understanding why, raised her tear-filled eyes to him. The stranger leaned in close to her ear. His voice was quiet and level, but in the silence of the hall, every word rang out clearly, like a hammer blow. "Take my arm, and they will swallow their tongues when they see who you are with." Lena hesitated for only a fraction of a second. She saw the distorted rage on Terrell's face, saw the mask of horror frozen on her mother-in-law's face, and she reached out her trembling hand to the stranger. Her fingers touched the sleeve of his jacket. The fabric was expensive and cool. As soon as she rested her hand on him, he gently but insistently pulled her up. Lena stood. The stranger straightened to his full height and swept the room with a heavy gaze. Terrell's friends, who had been laughing a minute ago, now backed away. "Let's go," the man said simply. He didn't lead her toward the exit, as she had expected. He turned her around and walked with a confident stride right through the center of the ballroom, past frozen servers, past whispering guests, straight to the stage where the microphone stood. Terrell tried to rush them. "Hey, who are you? Where are you taking her?" But the man didn't even turn his head. He simply snapped his fingers, and two huge security guards emerged from the shadows, blocking Terrell's path. Terrell stumbled, nearly falling. Lena walked, her heart pounding somewhere in her throat. The click of her heels and the heavy steps of her companion were the only sounds in the enormous hall. They ascended the small stage. The musical band backed away in fear. The silver-haired man approached the microphone stand. He did not release Lena's arm, holding it firmly, as if demonstrating their alliance to everyone present. He adjusted the microphone and began to speak. His voice, amplified by the equipment, filled every corner of the ballroom, reaching everyone's core. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, without a trace of a smile. "My name is Victor Sterling." A whisper rippled through the hall. Some of the older generation gasped. Tamara Jackson turned so pale she looked like a ghost. She dropped her fork, and it clattered against her plate. "I own this ballroom," Victor continued, looking directly into the eyes of Terrell's mother, "and I am forced to interrupt this celebration." He paused, allowing the tension to peak. "This wedding is canceled right now." Someone shrieked in the hall. The bride jumped up from her seat. "What? You can't do that! We paid!" Victor shifted his gaze to Tiffany, and she went silent. "No, honey, you didn't pay." His voice became hard as steel. "The checks your mother, Tamara Jackson, wrote bounced an hour ago. Insufficient funds. There's nothing in the accounts." He pulled a folded sheet of paper from his inner pocket and casually dropped it on the floor of the stage. "You are broke. The music is over. Security. See out everyone who hasn't paid their way." He lifted Lena's hand higher. "This woman, however, stays." She is the only person in this family with any conscience. Now get out of here." Tiffany's scream drowned out even the sound of breaking dishes. The bride, forgetting her manners, hurled her bouquet right into her mother's face. White roses scattered across the polished hardwood floor like snow. "What do you mean, no money?" she wailed, stomping her elaborate gown. "Mom, you promised. You said everything was paid for. I'm humiliated in front of the whole city." The hall erupted into a frantic anthill. Guests, who a minute ago had been primly chewing on delicacies, now leaped from their seats, knocking over chairs. Some tried to sneak toward the exit, grabbing a bottle of expensive wine from the table, but the doors were already blocked by the managers. In the distance, sirens howled. The police were arriving quickly. The Sterling Grand did not tolerate debtors. Victor tightened his grip on Lena's elbow and pulled her away from the stage, not into the hall, but through a side service exit. They walked down a narrow corridor, smelling of bleach and boiled vegetables, past frightened cooks. The noise of the scandal remained behind the thick walls, but the trembling in Lena's hands would not stop. They exited into the back lot, the staff parking area. The air here was damp and heavy, smelling of impending rain and exhaust fumes. Victor's black SUV was parked right by the steps. The engine was already running. "Stop!" A hoarse, breaking cry made Lena flinch. Terrell stumbled out of the same doors, swaying. He looked pitiful. His jacket was unbuttoned, his shirt was pulled out of his pants, and his face was red and distorted by fury and alcohol. He saw Lena and lunged at her like a bull in a bull ring. "Where do you think you're going?" he yelled, trying to grab her arm. "This is your fault. You brought us bad luck. The minute you opened your mouth, everything went to hell. You cursed my family." Lena recoiled, hitting her back against the cold metal of the car. In her husband's eyes, she saw not just anger, but real madness. He reared back, intending to hit her directly in the face, to vent all the shame of the evening. But Terrell's hand never reached its target. One of Victor's bodyguards, a silent giant with a face like stone, intercepted Terrell's wrist in midair. The movement was short and swift. The guard simply squeezed and slightly twisted his arm. Terrell howled in pain and collapsed onto his knees, right into a puddle of greasy oil on the asphalt. "One more move toward her," Victor's voice sounded quiet, which only made it more terrifying. "And you will be picking up your teeth with broken fingers." Terrell gasped, scrambling in the dirt, trying to get up, but the bodyguard placed his boot on his jacket lapel, pinning him to the ground. "In the car!" Victor commanded Lena. The door slammed shut, cutting them off from the street sounds. The interior smelled of leather and expensive cologne. The car pulled away smoothly, leaving behind a wailing Terrell in the puddle, the flashing lights of police cars at the front entrance, and a ruined wedding. They drove in silence for about 10 minutes. Lena stared out the window at the flashing lights of downtown Atlanta. The city was living its own life, indifferent to the fact that her world had just crashed down. She felt empty. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of humiliation, sacrificing her needs, trying to please them. All of it had burst today like an abscess. The car slowed to a stop at an unassuming 24-hour coffee shop on the edge of the city center. There was no pretense here, just quiet jazz and the aroma of ground coffee. Victor chose the furthest table, hidden from view by a decorative screen. The waiter brought a pot of green tea. Victor poured her a cup himself. His movements were precise and confident, without unnecessary fuss. "Drink," he said. "You need to calm down." Lena held the hot mug with both hands, trying to warm up, even though the room was already warm. Her teeth were still chattering. "Why did you do this?" she finally asked, without looking up. "Why did you take me away? Now they will destroy me. You don't know Tamara Jackson. She won't forgive this." Victor smirked. It wasn't a kind smile, but the predatory grin of a shark that had smelled blood. Tamara Jackson is currently busy explaining to the Atlanta Police Department why she ordered a banquet for $300,000 when she had zilch in her bank accounts. She has bigger worries than you. He took a thin file from his leather brief and placed it on the table. "You still think they're wealthy, Lena? That the mansion with the columns, those cars, that business, that it's all real? Of course, Lena whispered. They have a freight and logistics company, trucks, warehouses. Terrell always said the business was booming. They just had temporary setbacks and needed to reinvest. That's why I gave them my salary to help. Victor laughed. The sound was dry and short. Reinvest, a beautiful word. In reality, they've been bankrupt for 5 years. They live on credit. They take out new loans to cover the interest on the old ones. Tamara pawned all her jewelry last year. Tiffany's wedding was their last bet. They hoped to find a rich son-in-law who would cover their holes. It didn't work out. Lena listened, unable to comprehend. How is that possible? Terrell bought designer suits. My mother-in-law changed fur coats every season. But the business, she started. The business is a loss, Victor cut in. I know this because I've been tracking them for 30 years. They stole my share of an inheritance, but they weren't smart enough to multiply it. But I didn't bring you here to discuss their stupidity. I brought you here to open your eyes to your role in this circus. He pushed the folder toward her. Open it. Lena's trembling fingers pulled back the cover. On top was a document with an official seal. The letters swam before her eyes. 3 years ago, Victor's voice became smooth. Terrell brought you some papers. He said it was a formality, something about life insurance or a pension savings account. He rushed you, said the courier was waiting. Do you remember? Lena frowned. The memory surfaced as a blurry spot. Yes, there was an evening like that. Terrell was unusually affectionate, brought me tea, and made jokes. He handed me a stack of papers with check marks. Sign here. I was so exhausted after the quarterly report that I didn't even read it closely. I trusted my husband. I remember, she said softly. He said it was for a tax deduction. Look at what you signed. Victor pointed to the top line of the document. Lena looked closer. Deed of gift. Act of acceptance and transfer of real estate. Resolution of the sole founder on change of ownership. She read it, and a chill went down to her bones. The address of the mansion where they lived. The legal address of Davis Freight and Logistics. The warehouses. The land. In the owner's column, there was only one name, Lena Davis. She looked up at Victor, her eyes full of horror and disbelief. I don't understand. This is a mistake. Why is my name here? Victor leaned forward. His gray eyes bored through her. It's not a mistake. It was their brilliant plan. 3 years ago, creditors started pressing Tamara and Terrell. They were threatened with confiscation of property for debts. To save the assets, they needed to transfer them to someone clean, someone who wouldn't arouse suspicion at the IRS, someone gray, inconspicuous, and compliant. You. He tapped the table with his finger. They transferred everything to you, absolutely everything, to hide it. They planned that you, the foolish and obedient wife, would sit on this property for a couple of years, and then they would divorce you and force you to sign a reverse deed, leaving you with nothing. Lena stared at the documents. The mansion they wanted to kick her out of today, the company whose profits Terrell spent on his parties. By law, all of it belonged to her. They didn't have time to take it back, Lena, Victor whispered. You are not a parasite. You are not a poor relative who came to eat for free. Legally, you are the sole owner of their lives. You own the house where they sleep. You own the company where they are listed as directors. You own the very fork your mother-in-law eats her breakfast with. The silence in the coffee shop became deafening. Lena stared at her signature at the bottom of the page, the very signature she made, hoping to help her husband with taxes. Now, that signature was a verdict, or a weapon. What do I do now? She asked, feeling her fear replaced by something else, something hot and heavy rising in her chest. Victor leaned back in his chair, and for the first time that evening, allowed himself a genuine smile. Now the fun begins. We're going home. To your home. Lena stepped out of Victor's car by the iron gates, clutching the file of documents so tightly her knuckles were white. Victor didn't go with her. He just gave her a farewell nod. His look said, "This is your battle, and the weapon is in your hands." The SUV disappeared around the corner, leaving her alone with the house that she now knew belonged to her, but which had always felt like a stranger's fortress. She walked up to the porch. A light was on in the window. That was odd. Terrell should have been somewhere in the city, nursing his wounds after the humiliation at the ballroom, and her mother-in-law was probably still giving testimony to the police. Lena pulled out her bunch of keys. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, angry adrenaline rush. She inserted the key into the massive oak door's lock. The key went in, but didn't turn. Lena pushed harder. Nothing. The mechanism seemed frozen. She tried again and again. Useless. The cold realization washed over her. Terrell had changed the locks. While she was working, while she was sewing her dress at night, while she was being humiliated at the wedding, he was already preparing to kick her out. He was just waiting for the right moment. He hadn't even planned to let her back in after the reception. Lena stepped back. Before, she would have sat on the steps and cried. Before, she would have called Terrell and begged him to let her in. But now she had the folder in her hands. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number for the 24-hour emergency locksmith service. "I need to get into my home," she said firmly. "I have the property ownership documents right here." The locksmith arrived in 20 minutes. He was a stocky man with a toolbox. He looked suspiciously at Lena in her modest dress, standing in front of such an expensive mansion. "You say you're the owner?" he grunted. "Then why don't the keys work?" "My husband changed them," Lena replied dryly, opening the folder. "Here's the deed. Here's my driver's license. Compare them." The locksmith shone his flashlight on the papers, comparing the name, address, and license details. His face went slack. The documents were in perfect order. "No questions, Ms. Davis. We'll open it right up." The whine of a drill tore the silence of the exclusive neighborhood. 5 minutes later, the door gave way. Lena paid the locksmith, stepped over the threshold, and bolted the door behind her. The house was warm, smelling of expensive, heavy, sweet perfume. The scent was familiar, but she couldn't quite recall whose it was. Lena walked quietly through the marble hall. Her heels made a hollow sound on the floor. She ascended the stairs to the second floor, heading to the master bedroom to pack her things. Her plan was simple. Grab her clothes and documents and check into a hotel. She didn't want to spend another minute within these walls. The door to the master suite was slightly ajar. Lena pushed it open and froze. A woman was sitting on their wide marriage bed, atop the silk comforter. She was wearing Lena's soft terry cloth bathrobe, the one Lena had bought for herself with a bonus 6 months ago. The woman was lazily flipping through a magazine, dangling her foot. It was Marina, Tiffany's best friend, the maid of honor at the very wedding they had all fled. Marina raised her head. There was no fear or embarrassment on her face. Instead, her lips stretched into a lazy, triumphant smile. "Well, look who decided to show up," she drawled, tossing the magazine aside. "I thought Terrell already warned you there's nothing for you here. How did you get in? Break the door down? That's a felony, sweetie." Lena stared at her, unable to utter a word. Marina, in her robe, in her bedroom. The puzzle snapped together instantly. All those evenings Terrell was late from meetings. All those weekends he went to visit his mother. Marina slowly rose from the bed. She demonstratively adjusted the robe's tie over her stomach and picked up a small plastic object from the nightstand, a pregnancy test. "See this?" She waved the test in front of Lena's face. 2 lines. "Terrell is thrilled. We've been together for 2 years, in case you, the blind hen, didn't notice. We were just waiting for the lawyers to prepare the papers for the asset reversal. Terrell said you would sign everything in a few days, and we could finally kick you out officially." "But since you're already here," Marina scoffed, "grab your rags and get lost. This house is mine now, and Terrell has a real family now, not this circus with an accountant." A wave rose inside Lena, but it wasn't hysteria. It was icy fury. Every word Marina spoke, every movement she made, killed the beaten-down woman Lena had been that morning. "Your house?" Lena repeated softly. "Mine," Marina nodded smugly. "And my babies. And you? You are nobody. The maid they forgot to fire." Lena didn't scream. She didn't lunge at her rival. She just pulled out her phone. She had noticed the number of the security company that serviced their neighborhood on a sticker by the front door. She remembered that Victor's folder also contained the security contract. She dialed the number. "Centurion Security Services. How can I help you?" A man's voice answered. "This is Lena Davis," she said clearly. "The address is Forest Lane, House 5. Contract number." She opened the folder, her finger finding the correct line. 784B. "I am the owner. There are trespassers in my home who are threatening my safety. I demand an immediate dispatch of the quick response team." Marina laughed. "Who are you trying to scare? Security? They know Terrell. They salute him. Are you completely crazy?" Lena didn't answer. She quietly walked to the window armchair and sat down, placing the folder on her lap. "You have 5 minutes to take off my robe," she said, looking out the window. 3 minutes later, the front door downstairs slammed. "Marina, baby, are you here?" Terrell's voice rang out. He ran up the stairs, out of breath, still in his dirty suit. "Can you believe that witch?" He burst into the bedroom and froze when he saw Lena in the armchair. "You!" he roared. "How did you get in here? Get out! I told you!" He didn't finish. The screech of tires came from the street, and a car with flashing lights pulled into the driveway. 3 guards in tactical gear, helmets and batons burst into the house. The heavy boots stomping up the stairs made the walls tremble. "Who called this in?" the group leader barked, entering the bedroom. Terrell lunged at him, pulling the familiar mask of the master of the house onto his face. "Guys, it's fine. This is my ex-wife. She broke in. We're about to kick her out." "Last name," the guard cut him off, not looking at Terrell, but checking his tablet. "Davis Terrell. I'm the owner." "The owner of the property is Lena Davis," the guard snapped. "Which one of you is Lena Davis?" Lena stood up. "I am. Here are the documents. These people are here illegally. The woman threatened me. I demand they be removed from my private property immediately." Terrell's eyes bulged. "What are you saying? What property? Guys, she's crazy. I pay your company's bills." "You haven't paid us in 3 months," the guard muttered. "The contract is in the name of Ms. Lena Davis. Order understood." The guard stepped forward. "Sir, exit." One of them took Terrell by the elbow. "Take your hands off me," Terrell shrieked. "This is my house. Marina, tell them." Marina, pressed against the wall, suddenly lost all her composure. "Ma'am, you too." The second guard pointed his baton toward the exit. "Gather your things, or you'll leave as you are." "She's wearing my robe," Lena calmly observed. The guard nodded. "Take it off. That's not your property." Marina, red with anger and humiliation, threw off the robe, left standing in just her lace lingerie. She snatched her dress, which was lying on the floor, and covering herself with it, hissed, "You'll pay for this! Terrell will destroy you!" "Exit!" the guards roared. Terrell and Marina were marched down the stairs. Terrell tried to resist, screaming about his connections and how everyone would be fired, but the professionals did their job silently and forcefully. They were shoved out the door like naughty cats. The rain started outside. Lena walked to the window. In the light of the streetlights, she could see Terrell, in just his shirt and dirty pants, and Marina, trying to pull her dress over her wet body, standing by the locked gates. Security hadn't let them onto the porch. They banged on the small gate, shouting something, but the noise of the rain drowned out their voices. Terrell shivered with cold. Marina smeared running mascara across her face. Lena turned away from the window. The room was silent. She walked to the small kitchen on the second floor and turned on the kettle. While the water boiled, she found her favorite mug in the cabinet, which she hid so Tiffany's friends wouldn't accidentally break it. She poured the boiling water, added a slice of lemon, and returned to the bedroom. She turned off the overhead light, leaving only the cozy floor lamp. She sat in the armchair by the window, took a sip of the hot tea, and looked down. There, imprisoned by the fence, two figures thrashed about under the pouring rain, her ex-husband and his mistress, the masters of the universe. And she, the gray mouse, sat in the warmth of her own home and for the first time in 10 years felt like she was breathing freely. But she knew this was just the beginning. Tamara Jackson wouldn't give up that easily. Monday morning started not with coffee, but with a public execution. Lena sat at her desk in the accounting department of the construction firm, trying to focus on the quarterly report. The numbers swam before her eyes. After the weekend's events, she had barely slept, starting at every rustle in the huge, empty mansion that now belonged to her. She expected a blow, but she didn't think it would be so low. The office door burst open with such a crash that plaster fell from the frame. Tamara Jackson swept into the office. Today, she wore no makeup. She was dressed all in black, like a widow, with a dark scarf tied around her head. Following her were Terrell's aunt, a corpulent woman with a red face, and a couple of other distant relatives Lena had only seen once at the wedding. "There she is!" Tamara Jackson wailed, pointing at Lena with a massive ring. "There she is, the snake we warmed in our bosom." The work in the office stopped. 10 employees froze, tearing themselves away from their monitors. "Good people, look at her!" her mother-in-law cried, clutching her heart dramatically. "We treated her like our own daughter. We pulled her out of the gutter, clothed and fed her. And she threw us out on the street, an old woman, into the rain. She left my only son without a penny." Terrell's aunt chimed in, starting to sob loudly. "She stole the family home. She desecrated our ancestors' memory. Fear God, Lena. How can the earth bear you?" Lena jumped up, knocking over her chair. Her face burned with shame. "Tamara Jackson, what are you doing? Stop this immediately. This is my workplace. I don't care." Tamara suddenly stopped playing the dying swan and flew toward Lena's desk, towering over her like a cliff. "Let everyone know what a thief you are. You forged the documents. You took advantage of Terrell's trust. Give back the house, you trash. Give us back our lives, or I will come here every day and kneel at the entrance until you are fired in disgrace." Colleagues began to whisper. Someone took out their phone and started recording. Lena felt the walls closing in. She felt like that little girl again, being scolded for a bad grade. Only now, the whole world was watching. The director's office door opened. Arkady Petrovich, her boss, a man who always valued silence and order above all else, stood in the doorway. He scowled at the spectacle. "What is going on here?" His voice was dry and icy. Tamara Jackson immediately rushed to him, actually falling to her knees on the carpet. "Protect us, dear father. Your employee is a fraud. She left my family homeless. She robbed us blind." Arkady Petrovich stepped back in disgust and looked at Lena. There was no sympathy in his gaze, only irritation. "Lena Davis," he hissed. "To my office, immediately." The CEO's office smelled of expensive tobacco and fear. Lena stood, head bowed, while Arkady Petrovich paced in front of the window. "I don't need problems, Lena," he said, not looking at her. "Our firm deals with serious people. Reputation is everything. And here we have a freak show, the police, screaming about fraud." "It's slander, Arkady Petrovich," she said quietly. "They transferred the property to me to evade taxes. I didn't steal anything." "I don't care!" he roared, slamming his hand on the desk. "Handle your family soap opera outside of the office. Tamara Jackson is a respected woman in this town. She has connections. If she starts writing complaints to every agency, we'll be tormented by audits. You have 2 options. Either you resolve this issue today and give them back everything they demand to shut them up, or you write your letter of resignation. I don't need drama queens." Lena left the office on shaky legs. No one was in the hallway anymore. Security had removed the chorus of wailers, but the sticky feeling of shame lingered in the air. Colleagues avoided her eyes when she passed. No one asked how she was. No one offered support. She rushed outside, gulping down air. Her hands trembled so badly she couldn't get a cigarette to her mouth, even though she hadn't smoked in 3 years. She wanted to give up, just sign those damn papers, return their rotten mansion and their debts, and move somewhere far away where no one knew the name Davis. She felt like an imposter. Who was she to take them on? Just a simple accountant. And they were the elite, albeit disgraced ones. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Hello?" Lena's voice trembled. "Are you ready to give it all back already?" Victor's voice sounded as if he were standing right next to her and could see through her. "I heard about the circus Tamara put on. Effective, isn't it?" Lena leaned her back against the brick wall of the building, sliding down. "I can't do this, Victor. I'm going to be fired. They hate me. They're pressuring me from all sides. Maybe I should just give up on the whole thing. I'm not a fighter. I love numbers, not war." "Exactly," Victor cut in sharply. "You love numbers. Leave the emotions for the telenovelas. Tamara is playing the pity card because she has no other leverage. She's scared of you, Lena." "Scared?" Lena laughed nervously. "She just dragged my name through the mud. She's scared because you're the owner now, and you still haven't done what every new business owner should do. You haven't conducted an audit." Lena froze. "What are you talking about?" "You have access to the Davis Freight and Logistics bank accounts. You are the CEO and the sole founder. Log into the system right now. Tamara doesn't just want the company back right now. There are transactions there she desperately wants to hide. What should I look for?" "Look for large transfers over the last year. The payment descriptions will be vague. Consulting services, charity, something like that. Look for the date, August 18th of last year." Lena hung up. August 18th. The date spun in her head as she ran back to the office, ignoring the sideways glances. She sat down at her computer and plugged in the flash drive with the electronic signature she had found in the safe at home. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. Log in to the client bank system. Username, password, access granted. She pulled up the statement for the last year, scrolling to August. Driver salaries, fuel payments, leases, stop. August 18th, a withdrawal of $300,000. Recipient, S.A. Woronov, attorney at law. Payment description, legal transaction support, followed by another payment 2 days later. A withdrawal of $200,000. Recipient, New Life Private Surgical Clinic. Description, employee health insurance payment. Lena frowned. Davis Freight and Logistics had never offered health insurance. She started checking the recipient, S.A. Woronov. A database search returned. Sergei Woronov, lawyer, specialization, criminal cases, traffic accidents with serious injuries. A chill ran down her spine. August 18th. Lena remembered that day. Tiffany had come home late without her car. She said she'd taken her red convertible to the shop because the transmission was acting up. She was pale, her hands shaking. She drank half a bottle of brandy and locked herself in her room. And the next day, Tamara Jackson suddenly sold their lake house. Lena opened the folder with the incoming documents for that period. Scans were stored in the system. She found the certificate of services rendered from the clinic. It listed a patient's name, not an employee's. 11-year-old Andrew Kovalyov. Diagnosis, multiple fractures, traumatic brain injury. The puzzle clicked together with sickening clarity. Tiffany had hit a child a year ago, and they hadn't gone to the police. They had paid their way out. They paid the parent's silence, paid for the treatment, paid the lawyer who buried the case before charges could be filed. But the most terrifying thing wasn't that. Lena looked at the payer field. Davis Freight and Logistics, Inc. Signature, electronic signature of CEO Lena Davis. They had used her electronic signature, the one Terrell asked for, just in case, so you don't have to run over every time to sign a bill of lading. They paid for Tiffany's crime with the company's money, which legally belonged to Lena. They laundered the bribe through her firm. Lena leaned back in her chair, her arms going numb. If this came to light, Tiffany might go to jail for the hit and run, but the owner and director would be held responsible for the financial schemes, the bribery, and using company accounts to conceal a crime. Tamara Jackson didn't just want the house back. She wanted to regain control of the evidence, or conversely, leave Lena holding the bag if the boy Tiffany hit suddenly decided to speak up again. Lena realized that being fired was the least of her problems. She was facing jail time, a real sentence for someone else's sins, and the only way for me not to go to jail is to turn them all in. Lena slammed the laptop shut as if it were Pandora's box, ready to unleash demons. The screen went dark, but the numbers, that cursed 300,000 and the name of the crippled boy, continued to burn in her mind. Jail. She faced real prison time. She, Lena Davis, a chief accountant with an impeccable reputation, could be locked up as an accomplice in money laundering and concealing a felony. Her hand reached for the phone to call Victor, but her fingers froze over the screen. What if Victor was also using her? He knew. He knew about those accounts since he told her what to look for. That meant he knew she was vulnerable. In this game, she was a pawn who could be traded at any moment. Both Tamara Jackson and this benevolent uncle. The phone in her hand came to life on its own. Terrell flashed on the screen. Lena wanted to hang up, wanted to block the number, but the fear of a jail cell was stronger than her pride. She needed to know what they were planning. She needed to find a way out. "Yes," she answered dryly, trying to keep her voice from shaking. "Lena." Her husband's voice was unrecognizable, quiet, cracked, stripped of the arrogance with which he had screamed at her yesterday in the rain. "Lena, please don't hang up. We need to talk. Not as enemies, but as people who spent 10 years together." "We have nothing to talk about, Terrell. I saw the documents. I saw the transfers." "I know," he said quickly. "I know everything. Mom, she's gone crazy. Lena, I'm scared. I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want you to end up there either. Let's meet on neutral ground, the park by the Riverwalk. Just you and me, please, for the sake of what we had." Lena hesitated for a second. An hour later, she arrived at the park early. She chose a bench in an open area where mothers with strollers and retirees were walking. The sun shone brightly, and it seemed insane that dirty deals and injured children existed in such a peaceful world. Terrell arrived exactly on time. When Lena saw him, her heart betrayed her and constricted. He looked terrible, always impeccably dressed, cleanly shaved. Now, he looked like a beaten dog. His shirt was wrinkled. He had 3 days of stubble on his cheeks. Deep shadows lay beneath his eyes. He had lost weight even in these couple of days. He didn't sit next to her. He stood opposite, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a guilty schoolboy. "Thank you for coming," he croaked. "What do you want, Terrell?" Lena asked, crossing her arms over her chest. "The money? The house?" Terrell knelt in front of her, looking up into her eyes. "To hell with the house, Lena. To hell with the money. I lost everything." He winced as if from a toothache. Marina left. As soon as we were thrown out, as soon as she realized I had nothing, she vanished. She didn't want me. She wanted my wallet. You were right. You were right about everything." Lena remained silent, but the icy armor around her heart cracked. It hurt to see him so humiliated. "Forgive me," he whispered, and tears glistened in his eyes. "I'm an idiot. I'm weak. Mom pressured me my whole life, manipulated me like a puppet. She planned everything, transferring the company to you, covering up for Tiffany. I didn't want this, Lena, I swear. I was just afraid to contradict her." He reached out and cautiously touched her knee with his fingertips. "I don't want a war. I don't want lawsuits. I'm tired. Let's just end all of this." "How do you suggest we do that?" Lena asked. "I'm the owner of a company with a felony hanging over it." "We'll sell everything," Terrell whispered eagerly. "I have a buyer for the mansion. I have people ready to take the company for the licenses, even with the debts. We'll sell all of this cursed inheritance, pay off the debts, and whatever is left, we'll split 50-50. He stood up and sat down next to her, but not too close, keeping his distance. "Lena, that's $5, maybe $8 million each. We can both leave. You always wanted to live by the ocean. I remember how we dreamed of buying a little condo in Miami. Let's just take the money and go our separate ways. Or," he stumbled, "or we can try to start over in a different city, without my mother, without all this pretense. Just you and me, like we were in college." Lena looked at the river. She remembered their student years. Terrell was different then, cheerful, caring. He carried her in his arms, gave her daisies because he couldn't afford roses. Could that guy still be alive somewhere inside this broken man? The idea of selling everything and washing her hands of it seemed like a lifeline. Get rid of the cursed mansion, the company with its dirty secrets. Just take the money and disappear. No jail, no war with Tamara Jackson. Silence and peace. "Did you really break up with Marina?" she asked quietly. "I kicked her out," Terrell lied, looking her straight in the eye with the sincerity she had always believed. "Lena, I love you. I messed up, but I love you. Let's sign a settlement tomorrow. I have a notary. He'll prepare everything. We'll sign a power of attorney for the sale of the assets. The money will go straight to your account. You'll be in control of the process." Lena closed her eyes. She wanted so badly to believe him. She wanted this nightmare to end. "Okay," she sighed. "Let's sell everything." Terrell breathed a sigh of relief and pressed his forehead to her shoulder. "Thank you. You're a saint, Lena. You're simply a saint. Tomorrow at noon at the notary Zimmons' office on Peachtree." He left without looking back, walking quickly, as if afraid she would change her mind. Lena remained on the bench, feeling a strange emptiness. Was she betraying Victor? Possibly, but Victor was a stranger. And Terrell? Terrell was her husband, weak and misguided. But he was hers. The evening was spent packing. Lena boxed up her belongings. She decided she wouldn't stay in that house a single day after the sale. She would rent an apartment, take a breath, and then decide what to do next. Maybe she would even give Terrell a second chance. Everyone makes mistakes. She poured herself a glass of wine and stepped onto the bedroom balcony. The night city twinkled with lights. For the first time in days, she felt calm. Her phone beeped, a message in her messenger app from Victor. No text, just a video file. Lena frowned. She didn't want to open it. She wanted to preserve this fragile illusion of peace she had built in the park today, but her finger hit the play icon on its own. The video was shot with a hidden camera. Judging by the angle, it was from a flower or a decorative element on the table. The quality was excellent, the sound crisp. It was a restaurant, the expensive steakhouse where Terrell liked to dine. In the video, Terrell sat slumped over. He no longer looked like a beaten dog. He sat sprawled out, a glass of whiskey in his hand, eagerly eating a steak. Across from him sat two men. One was fat and bald with shifty eyes. The other was thin, wore glasses, and had the cold face of a doctor. "She bought it?" the fat man asked, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Terrell smirked and shoveled a piece of meat into his mouth. "Like a lamb. I know exactly what buttons to push. I love you, baby. Let's start over." She's a sentimental fool. "Tomorrow at noon, she'll be with you, Zimmon. Are the papers ready?" "Ready," the fat notary nodded. "General power of attorney for the management of all property and assets in your name, with the right to delegate and sell. The moment she signs, she's penniless." "And then what?" the man in glasses asked. Terrell turned to him. "And then, doctor, it's your cue. As soon as she signs, you step in. Hysteria, erratic behavior, a threat to others. You can document that, right?" "Acute psychosis." The doctor nodded indifferently. "My orderlies will be waiting at the service entrance. It's a private team. They don't ask questions. A sedative shot, a straitjacket, and off to the clinic." "For how long?" Terrell clarified. "By law, involuntary commitment can last for months. While you're liquidating the assets, she'll be a vegetable on Haldol. No one will listen to her. She's crazy. What can you expect?" Terrell laughed. It was the laugh of a man who had finally solved all his problems. "Perfect. So, by tomorrow afternoon, I'm a rich bachelor again, and my wife is studying the patterns on padded walls. That's worth a drink." They clinked glasses. Lena dropped the phone. It fell with a dull thud onto the carpet. The screen remained lit. The freeze frame showed the satisfied, well-fed face of her husband, the face of the man who had cried on her shoulder an hour ago and was now planning to turn her into a vegetable to steal her money. Lena slid down the wall to the floor. Wine spilled from the glass onto the light carpet, but she didn't care. The world didn't just collapse, it turned inside out, showing its rotten, worm-eaten core. The fear vanished. The tears dried before they could start. A black hole formed inside her, sucking everything in. Love, pity, hope. All that remained was a ringing crystal hatred. She picked up the phone. Her fingers moved mechanically, as if they didn't belong to her. She typed a message to Victor. "I saw. What do I need to do tomorrow?" The answer came instantly, as if he had been waiting. "Tomorrow, you will go to that meeting, but you will not sign what they put in front of you." The next day, exactly at 11:55 a.m., Lena pushed open the heavy glass door of Notary Zimin's office. The air inside smelled of expensive leather and the dust of paper archives. The reception area was quiet. Only the secretary with unnaturally white hair clicked her long nails on the keyboard. Lena walked past her without stopping, straight into the office. Terrell was already there. He was sitting in a deep armchair, one leg crossed over the other, twirling an expensive pen. Opposite him, behind a massive oak desk, sat Notary Zimin himself, the same fat man from the video who had been eagerly chewing steak and discussing how to put Lena in a psychiatric ward last night. Seeing his wife, Terrell jumped up. The mask of the loving, remorseful husband instantly bloomed on his face. "Lena, you came! I was so afraid you'd change your mind. Sit down, darling. Water? Tea?" Lena ignored his gesture and took the free chair. She put her purse on the floor. Her back was straight as a board. She knew that outside the office center, a private ambulance was waiting. She knew that the doctor with the syringe was probably waiting in the next room. The fear was gone. All that remained was the cold calculation of a surgeon ready to lance an abscess. "Let's get straight to business," she said in a level voice. "I took a short break from work." Zimin, licking his lips, pushed a stack of papers toward her. "Of course, Ms. Davis. Everything is prepared, as agreed. A general power of attorney for the management of all property and assets in your husband's name, with the right to redelegate and sell. You only need to sign here, here, and here." Terrell leaned over her. He smelled of mint gum, which he used to mask the alcohol fumes. "Sign it, baby, and we'll go home. I'll take care of everything myself. You won't have to worry about a thing." Lena took the pen. Terrell held his breath. Zimin leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. Lena slowly pushed the power of attorney aside. She opened the folder she had brought with her and took out a single sheet. "You're right, Terrell. I will sign everything, but not this." She placed the document in front of him and signed with a flourish at the bottom. Then she looked up at her husband. "Read it." "This is order number 248 for Davis Freight and Logistics, Inc." Terrell blinked, confused. The smile slid off his face. "What order? Lena, what are you talking about? We need to sell the house, not play bureaucracy." "Read it," she said harshly. Terrell snatched the sheet. His eyes scanned the lines. "In connection with the gross violation of official duties, systematic embezzlement of corporate funds, and use of company accounts to conceal a criminal offense." His face began to flush with blood. "Terminate Terrell A. Davis from the position of executive director, effective today, without severance pay." He threw the sheet on the desk. "Are you out of your mind? What termination? I'm the director here. This is my firm." Lena calmly took out a second document, a bank statement. "Yours? According to the documents, it's mine, Terrell. And this is proof of how you moved $500,000 to bribe a lawyer and doctors to cover up Tiffany hitting a child. U.S. Code, Title 18, Section 1347, Healthcare Fraud and Conspiracy. And Title 18, Section 1956, Money Laundering." Silence hung in the office. All that could be heard was the hum of the air conditioner. Terrell stared at the statement as if it were a poisonous snake. He realized she knew. His entire act of repentance collapsed in 1 second. "You bought!" he hissed, his face contorted with rage. "Do you think you're smart? Do you think you're going to walk out of here?" He nodded to the notary. "Zimin, call the doctor, now. My wife is having a breakdown. She's unstable." The notary didn't move. Zimin sat there, sweating strangely, looking not at Terrell, but somewhere into the space in front of him. His hands trembled slightly. "Mr. Davis," he stammered in a choked voice. "Wait for the doctor. There's a legal problem." "What the hell is the problem?" Terrell roared. "Call the orderlies. We'll restrain her, and she'll sign everything she needs to in the ward." "No," Zeman shouted, unexpectedly loudly. "We can't. She has already signed the termination order in front of witnesses. If we use force now, it will be kidnapping. The police will arrest all of us, Terrell. I didn't sign up for a felony kidnapping charge." Terrell froze. He was cornered. His plan was falling apart. "So what do you suggest?" he yelled at the notary. Zeman, wiping his bald head with a handkerchief, quickly started talking, frantically shuffling the papers on the desk. "We need to legally void her order. Right now, you must sign a protocol stating that you are aware of the claims, but vehemently deny them. We will frame this as a corporate dispute. Then her signature won't hold up until the court rules. And while the court is deliberating, we can—" He pointedly glanced toward the door, hinting at the doctors. "Fine," Terrell barked. "Where do I sign?" Zeman nervously pushed a thick stack of documents toward Terrell. "Here, here, and here. This is the protocol of disagreement. This is the rejection of claims. And this is the demand for a board of directors meeting. Hurry, Mr. Davis, before she calls the police." Terrell was furious. Adrenaline hammered in his head, blurring his vision. He hated Lena. He wanted to destroy her right now, but he understood the notary was right. He needed a piece of paper to cover his backside. He grabbed the pen. He didn't even read what they were handing him. He only saw the signature check marks that Zeman had obligingly marked with a pencil. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Terrell signed page after page, wanting only one thing: to finish the formalities quickly and give the order to the orderlies. "There, done." He threw the pen on the table. "Now are you happy? Now call them." Zeman quickly, with the dexterity of a magician, scooped up the signed papers and pressed them to his chest. At that moment, the office door opened, but it wasn't the orderlies who entered. Two huge security guards in black suits walked in. Behind them came Victor Sterling. Terrell froze. He looked from Victor to the notary. Zeman huddled in his chair, trying to become invisible. "I'm sorry, Terrell," the fat man squeaked. "Mr. Sterling has very persuasive arguments. He knows about my real estate schemes in South Beach. I don't want to go to jail." "What is going on?" Terrell backed up, hitting his back against a bookcase. Lena slowly stood up. She took the top document from the trembling notary's hand, the one Terrell had just signed, and turned it toward her husband. "You were in such a hurry, darling. You didn't even look at the title." Terrell squinted at the paper. It wasn't a protocol of disagreement. Printed in large letters at the top of the page was Agreement of Acknowledgement of Debt Obligations. "What is this?" he whispered, feeling the floor drop out from under him. "It's your confession," Lena's voice rang with steel. "In this document, you confirm that over the last 5 years, you embezzled company funds for personal use, and you commit to repaying Davis Freight and Logistics $15 million. The repayment deadline is 24 hours. In case of non-repayment, there will be full confiscation of your personal property and criminal prosecution for fraud." Terrell turned white. He looked at his signature. It was clear and sweeping. He had signed his own death warrant. "This is a scam," he croaked. "Forgery. I'll report you." Victor stepped forward. "Report away," he said calmly. "The notary witnessed your capacity. The video camera in the corner recorded you voluntarily, without coercion, signing the documents. You are bankrupt, Terrell, and now you owe my niece everything, down to your socks." Terrell slid down the wall to the floor. The ambulance outside started its engine and drove away. The client could no longer afford the call. The victory in the notary's office did not bring silence. On the contrary, it signaled the start of total war. As soon as Terrell left the building, crushed and having signed the debt note, the Davis family switched to scorched earth tactics. If they couldn't beat Lena in court, they decided to destroy her in the eyes of the entire city. Lena's phone began to explode with notifications before she even got home. Instagram, city blogs, messenger chats, videos popped up everywhere. In one, Tamara Jackson, without makeup, her face swollen from tears, sat in front of a crucifix and tearfully told the camera the terrible truth. "Good people," she wept, wringing her hands. "Look at this woman, Lena Davis. We took her into our family when she was nothing, fed her, clothed her. And she found herself a rich old man, a gangster lover. They intimidated my poor son, forced him to transfer the business, and threw us, old people, out onto the street. She's a thief. She's sleeping with a thug for money." The video spread through Atlanta like a wildfire. Comments poured in by the thousands. "Burn the witch." "Where are the authorities?" "Poor family, hang in there." Lena felt like a leper. She tried not to read, but the city was too small. That evening, she needed to stop by the grocery store for bread and milk. She pulled her baseball cap over her eyes and zipped up her coat collar, hoping to slip through unnoticed. But they recognized her in the produce section. A heavy-set woman in line, seeing Lena, suddenly gasped loudly, "Look, that's the one who threw her mother-in-law out on the street." The line froze. Dozens of eyes fixed on Lena with hatred. "Aren't you ashamed?" a little old lady with a shopping cart hissed. "Don't you have a mother? Got involved with a sugar daddy and robbing people." "Excuse me," Lena whispered, trying to squeeze past the crowd, abandoning her basket. "Where do you think you're going?" the heavy-set woman shrieked, and without a second thought, spat right in Lena's face. "Pfft! Shame on you! May that money choke you!" Sticky saliva ran down her cheek. Lena fled the store to the jeers of the crowd. Her heart was pounding so hard her ribs felt like they would crack. She ran to the parking lot, wiping her face with her sleeve, dreaming only of one thing, locking herself in her car, her metal capsule, and driving away to where no one knew the name Davis. She reached her old sedan and froze. All 4 tires were flat. The rubber had been slashed with a knife, turned into rags, and on the hood, scratched deep into the metal with a key, was one word: thief. Lena leaned her back against the driver's door and slid onto the asphalt. She had no strength left. The victory over Terrell, the documents, the assets, all of it seemed meaningless in the face of this animalistic public hatred. Tamara Jackson knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't unleash lawyers on Lena. She unleashed the mob. "Take everything," Lena whispered into the void. "Take this cursed house, the company, the money. Just leave me alone." She wanted to call Victor and tell him she was quitting the game, that she would sign anything just to stop being an outcast. But she didn't call. Instead, she started walking. Her feet brought her to the old, quiet community church on the edge of the neighborhood. It was always peaceful there. No one was on Instagram. The church smelled of incense and hot wax. There were almost no people. Evening service was over. Lena bought the thinnest candle, went up to the icon of the Virgin Mary, and stared for a long time at the dark face. She didn't know the prayers. She just asked for silence, for the strength not to break. "Well, praying for forgiveness, Holy Roller?" A voice came right behind her, sharp and angry, shattering the sacred silence of the church. Lena turned around. Tiffany stood before her, the bride without a wedding. She looked no better than her brother. Messy hair, smeared makeup, her expensive coat unzipped, revealing a wrinkled dress underneath. She smelled of stale liquor. "Tiffany," Lena started, backing away. "Not here, please." "Where then?" Tiffany raised her voice, ignoring the shushing of an old parishioner. "You're everywhere. You're in my house. You're in my car. You're in my wallet. You took everything from us. My fiancé left me because of you. My friends blacklisted me because of you." Tiffany advanced, her eyes burning with insane rage. She cornered Lena against the wall of the narthex, near the exit to the inner courtyard. "You think you won?" her sister-in-law hissed, grabbing Lena's coat lapel. "I'll destroy you. I'll throw acid in your face, you hear me? You'll be afraid to step outside. Sign the waiver for the property, or I'll do it right here." Tiffany reared back, her long, artificial nails aimed at Lena's eyes. "Take your hands off her." A man's voice sounded calm but commanding, making Tiffany freeze with her hand raised. A young man emerged from the shadows of the churchyard, tall and stately, in a flawless cashmere coat. It was Serge, the perfect fiancé whom Tiffany was supposed to marry 3 days ago. The heir to a large agri-empire, the golden boy for whom Tamara Jackson had orchestrated this whole expensive wedding spectacle. Tiffany slowly lowered her hand. A fawning, pathetic smile appeared on her face. "Serge, darling," she stammered, instantly changing her tone. "You came. I knew you would. This trash? She ruined us. But we can still—" Serge walked closer. He didn't even look at Tiffany. He looked at Lena with respect and slight surprise. "You are Lena Davis, correct?" he asked. Lena nodded, pressing herself against the cold church wall. "I saw the documents you sent to the shareholders of Davis Freight and Logistics," Serge said. "The audit report. Very professional work, especially the section on the misuse of funds and the falsification of reports over the last 5 years. Tiffany turned pale. "Serge, what are you talking about? She fabricated all of it. It's fake!" Serge finally turned to his former fiancée. There was so much disgust in his gaze that he looked like he was staring at a cockroach. "Fake?" he asked. "My lawyers verified every point. Your family is bankrupt, Tiffany, but that's only half the problem. You are criminals. You are thieves who lived on credit and scams, and that accident a year ago. I asked you then why your car had a dent. You said a pillar. It turned out to be a child." I can explain everything." Tiffany tried to grab his hand, but he recoiled as if she had the plague. "Don't touch me," he said in an icy tone. "I came here because I saw your geolocation. I wanted to do this in person so there would be no rumors." He took a small velvet box from his pocket, the one he gave her at the engagement. Only now, the box was empty. "Wait, no, you pawned the ring yesterday, didn't you? I was informed." Tiffany whimpered, covering her mouth with her hand. "We are through," Serge announced loudly so that the few passers-by outside the fence could hear. "I will not marry a fraud's daughter. My family will not be related to bankrupts and criminals. You are not my equal, Tiffany. You are just an empty shell in beautiful wrapping." He turned to Lena and nodded briefly. "I apologize that my former fiancé caused you inconvenience. If she approaches you again, call me. My security team will explain the rules of conduct to her faster than the police." Serge turned and walked toward the gates where his tinted car was waiting. Tiffany remained standing in the middle of the churchyard. She opened and closed her mouth like a fish thrown onto the shore. Her perfect match, her ticket to a beautiful life, had just driven away, leaving her in the mess she had created. She slowly slid to her knees right onto the cobblestones and wailed, not from grief, but from impotent fury, realizing that now she had truly lost everything. Lena looked at her and understood. There was no more pity. Only one last step remained. Leaving the wailing Tiffany on the cobblestones, Lena walked out of the church gates. The trembling in her hands was gradually subsiding. It seemed the worst was over. Terrell was crushed by debt. Tiffany was abandoned by her fiancé, and their reputation was destroyed. Lena took a deep breath of the cool evening air, feeling for the first time in a week that she could simply go home and sleep without fear. She headed toward her car with the slashed tires to call a tow truck. But before she could pull out her phone, the silence of the street was shattered by the wail of sirens. A police cruiser sped around the corner, squealing its tires. It cut her off, blocking her path onto the sidewalk. The doors flew open, and 2 officers jumped out. "Ms. Lena Davis," one of them barked, giving her no time to react. "Yes, that's me." Lena instinctively stepped back. "What's the matter? I'm the victim. My car was vandalized." "Hands on the hood," the officer yelled roughly, grabbing her elbow. "You are under arrest for suspicion of felony fraud. Section 1590, subsection 4. "What?" Lena jerked, but handcuffs clicked coldly onto her wrists. "What fraud? You've made a mistake. I'm the one being harassed." "We'll sort it out at the precinct. Get in." She was roughly shoved into the back seat of the cruiser. The cabin smelled of gas and old dust. Lena tried to catch the driver's eye, tried to explain something, but they remained silent. Her phone was confiscated immediately. She had no contact with Victor. She was completely alone. 20 minutes later, she was brought to the precinct. It was noisy here. The lights were dimly lit. Drunks and exhausted detectives walked by. Lena wasn't taken to a holding cell. She was led immediately to an office at the end of the hall. A police captain sat behind the desk. He had a fleshy red face and the watery eyes of a man who had long sold his conscience for an envelope of cash. A thick file lay on the desk in front of him. Lena managed to read her last name on the cover. "Have a seat, Miss Davis." The captain nodded toward a chair bolted to the floor. "Well, you ran far enough, didn't you? Thought you were the cleverest one." "I don't know what you're talking about," Lena said firmly, though everything inside her was shrinking into an icy knot. "I demand a lawyer. I have the right to a phone call." The captain smirked and lit a cigarette, blowing a stream of smoke in her face. "A lawyer won't help you. This case is clear, sweetheart. We have a complaint from the victim, Tamara Jackson, and rock-solid evidence." He opened the folder and threw a copy of a document in front of Lena. "Recognize this?" Lena looked. It was the same 3-year-old deed of gift that transferred the house and company to her. "This is an official document," she said. "It was notarized." "That's where you're wrong." The captain took out a second sheet. "Handwriting analysis. Freshly done today. The expert determined that Terrell Davis's signature on this agreement is forged, and Tamara Jackson's signature on the transfer deed is also forged." Lena froze. "That's nonsense! They brought me these papers themselves. They signed them in front of me." "You forged them, Lena," the captain said smoothly, leaning toward her over the desk. "You, taking advantage of your husband's trust, slipped him fake papers, or signed for him yourself while he was sleeping, and then you bribed the notary to stamp them. Except that notary, they say, died a year ago. Convenient, right? All trails are gone." A pounding started in Lena's head. Tamara Jackson had gone to the bank. She decided to rewrite the past. If they proved the documents were forged, Lena wouldn't just lose everything. She would go to jail for 10 years. "It's a lie," Lena said quietly. "There are records in the registry." "We'll clean the registry. We'll check it," the captain corrected himself with a smirk. "But I have the sworn testimony of your mother-in-law. She claims you threatened her, that you blackmailed the family." The captain stood up and approached her closely. He reeked of cheap tobacco and sweat. "Listen to me carefully, Davis. You're in deep. Tamara Jackson is an influential woman. She has connections with the district attorney. You'll be locked up in the county jail tonight, and in there, the population is diverse. The cell is cold, the cellmates are mean. You're an accountant. You won't survive in there." He placed a blank sheet of paper and a pen in front of her. "But there's an option. A confession. You write that the devil got into you, that you wanted the good life, that you forged your husband's signature out of jealousy. We'll reclassify the charge to a softer one. You'll get probation, you'll return the property to its rightful owners, and you can go live with your mother in the country." Lena stared at the white sheet. It was a trap. If she signed, she admitted guilt. She was finished. In that moment, she wanted to surrender, just to make this sticky fear go away. Tamara had won. She had the money, the police, the power, and Lena only had numbers in her head. Numbers. Lena closed her eyes for a second. She remembered what Victor had taught her. Emotions are for the weak. Facts are a weapon. She raised her head and looked the captain straight in the eye. "Captain, are you aware that giving knowingly false expert testimony is a violation of U.S. Code, Title 18, Section 1505? The captain frowned. "Are you trying to be a smartass?" "I see the expert's last name on your sheet, Gromov, A.V. Lena's voice grew stronger. She spoke as she had spoken at the board meeting when firing her husband. "I know that name. I checked the records when I prepared the annual report. This person was stripped of their license 2 years ago for falsifying evidence in a traffic accident case. His signature has no legal weight. Your expert opinion is just a piece of paper that can be tossed in the trash." The captain's face broke out in red blotches. "How dare you speak to me like that?" "I am speaking to you in the language of the law," Lena articulated. "I will not sign anything. According to the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, I refuse to testify against myself, and I demand that it be recorded in the protocol that you are pressuring me using knowingly false documents." The captain slammed his fist on the table, making the ashtray jump. "You desk jockey, you know the law, huh? I'll throw you in a cell with the hardened criminals right now. They'll explain the Constitution to you quickly. Sign it while I'm being nice." He grabbed her shoulder, squeezing painfully. Lena cried out, but did not avert her gaze. "I will not sign." "You will sign," he roared, raising his hand, "or you'll leave here permanently disabled. Tamara Jackson paid well to make you disappear for a long time." At that moment, the office door flew open with a bang. The impact was so strong that the lock flew out of the frame. Victor Sterling stood in the doorway. He was without a coat, in the same sharp suit. His eyes were terrifying. Behind him in the hallway lay two uniformed police officers who had apparently tried to stop him. "Take your hands off her," Victor said. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it made the captain's knees shake, and he released Lena, backing up toward the window. "Who are you?" the captain shrieked, reaching for his holster. "This is a secure facility. I'll shoot." Victor didn't even look at his gun. He stepped aside, letting another person into the office. It was a small, thin, elderly man in thick-lensed glasses. He clutched a worn leather briefcase to his chest. The captain turned pale. He recognized the man. Every veteran officer in this city knew him. "Sergei Ivanovich," the captain whispered, "but Tamara Jackson said you were dead." The old man adjusted his glasses and walked to the desk. "Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated, Captain. I was retired, at my farm, growing tomatoes, until this respectable gentleman came to me." He nodded toward Victor, "and told me that my honest name was being dragged through the mud." "Who is he?" Lena asked, rubbing her sore shoulder. "He is the notary who handled the transaction 3 years ago," Victor replied, walking over to Lena and standing beside her like a rock. "Tamara was sure he was dead, and the archive was destroyed. She miscalculated." The old man opened his briefcase and took out a laptop. 3 years ago," he began in a creaky voice, "Ms. Tamara Jackson practically burst into my office. She demanded I process a deal retroactively to hide assets from an IRS audit. I refused to break the law, but I agreed to process the deal by the book." "Those are just words," the captain yelled, though sweat was already pouring down his face. "Word against word." "I am old-fashioned, young man," the notary smirked. "I record all transactions on video for backup, specifically for cases like this." He turned the laptop screen toward the captain and pressed the space bar. A poor-quality video appeared on the screen, but the sound was excellent. The notary's office. In the frame, a young, confused Lena sat in a chair, clutching her purse, and Tamara Jackson towered over her. Tamara's voice on the video was loud and commanding. "Sign it, you fool! Hurry up! I need to hide all this on you before the IRS freezes the accounts. You'll just be a placeholder, got it? You'll give it all back in a year." Lena in the video timidly asked, "Terrell, is this legal?" Terrell entered the frame. He waved his hand. "Just sign it. Mom said we have to. We're putting the firm and the house in your name so the marshals don't take them. You're the formal owner. No one will bother you." The notary in the video asked, "Ms. Davis, are you acting voluntarily?" Tamara Jackson answered for her. "She's voluntary. She's voluntary. Just process it." The video ended. A ringing silence hung in the office. "This is not just proof that the signatures are genuine," Victor said calmly. "This is proof of tax evasion, conspiracy to conceal assets, and coercion into a contract. And it's also proof, Captain, that your expert testimony is a fake." Victor approached the captain and carefully took the file from his hands. "Here is the deal, Captain. You have 2 options. First, I send this recording and the recording of your interrogation to Internal Affairs and the FBI. You go to jail alongside Tamara Jackson for falsifying a criminal case." The captain began to tremble slightly. His lips were white. "And the second option?" he croaked. "You immediately release Lena Davis. You close the case for lack of evidence of a crime. And you take a countersuit from us against Ms. Tamara Jackson for making a false report and fraud." The captain collapsed into his chair, wiping his face with his sleeve. He knew his hand was beaten. "Unlock her handcuffs," he managed to squeeze out, not looking Victor in the eye. The officer standing by the door unclasped Lena's wrists with trembling hands. The steel fell to the floor. Lena rubbed the red marks on her skin. "Let's go," Victor said, offering her his hand. "We need to get some rest. We have a tough day tomorrow. Tomorrow, we finish this story." They walked out of the stuffy precinct into the night. Lena took a deep breath. She looked at Victor. "You knew he was alive?" she asked about the notary. "I hoped," Victor replied, opening the door of his SUV for her. "But now we don't just have a shield, we have a sword. And tomorrow we deliver the final blow. Tamara wanted war. She'll get a total surrender." The morning of reckoning arrived exactly at 9 o'clock. The sun flooded the upscale Royal Heights neighborhood with bright, merciless light, leaving no shadows for the Davis family's sins to hide in. Not one car, but an entire convoy, pulled up to the iron gates of the mansion. Victor's black SUV led the way. Behind it was my new car, gleaming silver, which I had bought just an hour ago. Following them were 2 vans with the logos of the U.S. Marshal Service and a truck for confiscation. The neighbors, accustomed to silence and privacy, had already poured out onto the street. Curious faces peered over the tall fences. Tamara Jackson had always flaunted her status, humiliating everyone around her. So today, the spectators gathered, as if at the Roman Colosseum, awaiting a bloody spectacle. I stepped out of the car. I was wearing a sharp white suit. No gray mouse, no tearful victim. I adjusted my sunglasses and nodded to the chief marshal. "Proceed," Victor said curtly, standing beside me. The marshals cut the lock on the small gate with a bolt cutter. The shower of sparks was a celebratory salute to the end of the Davis Empire. We walked into the yard. The mansion door flew open. Tamara Jackson stormed out onto the porch. She was in a silk robe, her hair a mess, her face gray, without a trace of makeup. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, her voice breaking. "This is private property. I'll call the police. I'll call the district attorney." The chief marshal, a stocky man with a folder in his hands, didn't even slow his pace. "The police are already here, ma'am." He nodded at the patrol car closing the convoy. "We have a writ of execution for immediate eviction and confiscation of property to settle the debt to Davis Freight and Logistics, Inc. You have 30 minutes to gather your personal belongings. Furniture, electronics, and artwork are seized." "What debt?" Tamara rushed at him, trying to snatch the papers. "This is a mistake. My son—" "Your son signed an acknowledgement of debt," Victor interrupted her calmly. $15 million plus interest plus court costs. This house has been appraised and it is transferred to the ownership of the creditor, which is Lena Davis. Tamara froze. She looked at me. There was so much venom in her eyes that it could have poisoned an ocean. "You," she hissed. "You actually did this. May you be cursed." "Time's ticking," I said coldly, looking at my watch. 29 minutes. Terrell and Tiffany stumbled out of the house. Terrell looked like a ghost. He hadn't shaved in days. His hands were shaking. Tiffany was sobbing, clutching a fur coat to her chest. "Put the coat down," the marshal said sternly. "That is a luxury item and is subject to inventory." "It's mine!" Tiffany screamed, clinging to the fur. "It was a gift." "Do you have a receipt?" "No." "Then it's the debtor's property. Into the truck." The marshals worked precisely and without emotion. They carried out plasma TVs, paintings in gilded frames, and boxes of collectible wine. Everything the Davises had been so proud of, everything they had lied and stolen for, was now being loaded into the dusty bed of the truck. I stood in the middle of the yard, watching the destruction. Strangely, I felt nothing. No malice, no pity. I was just watching a tumor being cut out of my life. Terrell, seeing me, suddenly came to life. A desperate hope flickered in his eyes. He shoved the marshal aside and rushed toward me, right onto the cobblestones, falling to his knees in the dust. The neighbors behind the fence went silent, catching every move. "Lena, sweet Lena," he pleaded, trying to grab the edge of my suit jacket. I took a step back so he wouldn't touch the clean fabric. "Forgive us. We were fools. We made a mistake, but we're family. 10 years. Lena, remember our wedding. Remember how we swore to be together through thick and thin." He was genuinely crying. Tears streamed down his unshaven cheeks, leaving dirty tracks. "I love you," he cried, looking up at me. "Mom is old. She has nowhere to go. Tiffany was dumped. Don't be cruel. Leave us the house. We'll live together. I'll carry you in my arms. I'll be the best husband. Please, darling, you're good. You're not like them." Tamara Jackson stood on the porch, her hand pressed to her mouth. Her pride was broken. She was silent, watching her son's humiliation, hoping my heart would soften. Tiffany stopped whimpering and also looked at me with hope. I looked at the man I had loved for 10 years and saw only emptiness. Standing before me was not a husband. He was a parasite who had been deprived of his feeding trough. I took off my sunglasses so he could see my eyes. "Stand up," I said quietly. Terrell jumped up, smiling through his tears, ready to embrace me. "You forgave me? You?" I said, "Stand up so you could hear me standing." My voice became hard as granite. "You talk about family, Terrell? About the wedding?" I looked around at the silent neighbors, the marshals, and the frozen Tamara, and loudly, articulating every word, I said, "At your sister's wedding, you told me the truth, the only truth in all these years. You said, 'You are not family to us. You came here to eat for free, and you forbade me to eat.'" Terrell turned pale. "I learned my lesson, Terrell," I continued. "You are not family to me. None of you are family to me. You are just people who spent years eating for free at my expense. At the expense of my labor, my nerves, my life. The banquet is over. The waiter brought the bill." Terrell tried to speak again, but I raised my hand, stopping him. "Victor, the papers." Victor walked over and placed a folder on the hood of my car. "What is that?" Tamara Jackson whispered, descending from the porch. "Are you giving us back the house?" I took out a pen. "This house is rotten," I said, looking at the facade with the molding that was already starting to crack. "It smells of lies and betrayal. I will not live here. I don't need your ancestral fortress." I signed the document with a flourish. "I, Lena Davis, am selling this land, house, and all the assets of Davis Freight and Logistics to Victor Sterling's holding company." "Selling it?" Tiffany gasped. "Yes, for $70 million. I named the sum that made Tamara's knees buckle. "That money has already been deposited into my personal account, right now. I am no longer the owner of your debt, and I am no longer the owner of your house. Now he is the owner here." I nodded toward Victor. He smiled his predatory smile. "And I," Victor said, addressing Tamara, "have completely different plans for this place. I will tear down this mansion. I will level it to the ground. There will be a community park here so that not even the memory of you remains." Tamara Jackson clutched her heart and sank onto the steps. "And us?" Terrell whispered. "Where do we go? We have nothing." I took a small white envelope from my purse. It was thin. "I'm not cruel, Terrell. I remember we lived together." I tossed the envelope to his feet in the dust. "There's $300 in here. That's enough to rent a studio apartment on the edge of the industrial zone for exactly 1 month and buy food. Pasta, bread, the bare necessities." Terrell stared at the envelope as if it were a bomb. "Consider it charity," I said, putting my sunglasses back on. "Alms for the homeless. After all, you said yourself that I came to eat for free. Now it's your turn." "You can't do this!" Tiffany shrieked, lunging at me. "You're trash!" Victor's bodyguards blocked her way like a wall. "I can," I replied, getting into the car. "I don't owe anyone anything. I am free." I started the engine. The motor responded with a soft, powerful roar. Victor got into his SUV. The marshals began sealing the house doors, ushering the Davises out through the gates. I pulled away slowly, driving out of the yard. In the rearview mirror, I saw the final scene of this drama. They stood on the sidewalk, surrounded by plastic bags of belongings, the only things they had left. Tamra Jackson, the great matriarch, sat on the curb, sobbing and smearing her makeup. Terrell picked up the envelope from the ground, and Tiffany immediately lunged at his hand, trying to snatch the cash. They started yelling at each other. Terrell pushed his sister, and the mother screamed at her son, accusing him of weakness. They were tearing each other apart like spiders in a jar. Neighbors filmed it on their phones. Tomorrow, the whole city would be discussing the downfall of the Davis clan. But I didn't care. I pulled onto the highway, stepped on the gas pedal, and felt the car surge forward, carrying me away from the past. Ahead was the road. Ahead was life, my life. And for the first time in 36 years, it belonged only to me. The end. And that brings this complex story to a close. Wow, what an ending, right? Honestly, I even got goosebumps from the icy calm with which Lena threw that envelope onto the dirty sidewalk. Now, I'd really like to talk to you. What do you think? Did Lena do the right thing? Was this ultimate justice, or was it perhaps excessive cruelty? After all, she essentially destroyed their lives, leaving the family homeless. Should one fight fire with fire, or should she have shown mercy when her enemy was already defeated? I look forward to hearing your opinion in the comments. Whose side are you on? Do you support Lena, or do you condemn her final action? And one more important question. Would you like to know what happened next? How did Lena use her wealth? Did she find true happiness? And did the Davises manage to climb out of the hole, or did they perish in that studio apartment on the outskirts? If you want me to write a continuation of this story, please let me know. If you have any questions about the plot or if anything seemed unclear, please ask. I'll be happy to answer everyone. Please don't forget to like this video if the story captivated you, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch. All the best. In the middle of the screen at the end of this video, a box will appear. Please click on that box. Our other most interesting stories will be there. M.